Get this, ladies and gentlemen, Hispanic workers will account for more than 3/4 of American job growth over the next decade, and that's according to the U.S. government. So as unemployment in the economy takes center stage during this year's presidential election, how do the candidates address the issue of illegal immigration while not offending a growing segment of the American workforce? That's the question. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers on the Vote. I'm Robert Tranum, and I'm joined by Phil Musser, Republican strategist and former advisor to Governor Mitt Romney, and Kristian Ramos, policy director with NDN, a progressive think tank here in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome. So here is the reality. America is browning. More and more people are beginning to look different from our founding fathers as it relates to the workforce, as it relates to young adults, as it relates to, frankly, our current president. So with unemployment roughly at 8.2, 8.3%, with millions of people coming into this country illegally and legally, how important is it for the two individuals that are running for president, presumably the Republican nominee, whomever he may be, and the Democratic nominee, the President of the United States, to address this issue? Kristian.
Well, I think there's just a couple of things that we want to, outliers that we want to set here. Number one, low-skilled immigrant laborers, both legal and undocumented, do not compete with that same segment of legal citizens in this country.
Really? Because
yes.
I think it's funny because I read something a couple of months ago that said that they do compete with individuals that may have a GED, meaning American citizens that have a GED, farmers, laborers, and so forth.
Well, so this is the situation where it speaks to the demographic trends that you were speaking about. The segment of that population that traditionally would have done that in sort of citizens and so on and so forth, they are getting older. The baby boomers, those people are retiring. And what's so fascinating in our earlier segment, we're talking about the state laws and things that are going on there. What is fascinating in places like Georgia and Alabama and so on and so forth is they are scaring off Hispanic workers, both legal and undocumented workers in these agricultural, low-skilled labor markets. You are having instances where in Georgia, where they literally can't get anybody to come fill those jobs. One. Two, they had an instance where they actually went to prisons, brought people in on work furlough to do these same jobs, and they wouldn't even do it. They left after 3 hours of being in the sun. So this sort of, you're seeing a demographic shift in the sense that those people who once did those jobs are getting older. And secondly, the other side of it is, technology and things like that. Our economy is no longer built to those sort of jobs. So our workforce isn't attuned to doing that stuff in the long term, for jobs.
So, Phil, go ahead, please.
Well, just look in terms of how important is it for the Republican Party to message effectively to Latinos. It's critical. And frankly, it's a structural change in the makeup of the country. And Republicans need to focus on talking about the issues that really matter at the core level. How am I going to get a job, and how am I going to create a labor market that's fair, that's open, and that it's accessible? How do I grow our economy? How do we educate our kids, and how do we talk about common shared values that lots in the Hispanic community share, frankly, with the conservative movement in a way that they might not with liberals? Because the fact is that Obama set out a series of lofty goals and made a lot of promises across the board in his campaign for president in 2008, hasn't measured up on a whole host of issues that are relevant to the Latino community in this country. But nonetheless, some of the rhetoric in the Republican primaries, frankly, has been counterproductive as it relates to reaching out and making Latinos feel like they're welcome members of our party, because a lot of it focuses on enforcement, deportation, and a negative series of words and connotations. And frankly, we need to shift that dialogue into talking about how a better growing pie of opportunity is consistent with a conservative vision that's attractive and appealing to Latinos.
That's an interesting point. Basically, what you're saying is we need, meaning the folks in the Republican Party need a very good message as well as a good messenger.
Correct.
To that point, who is that person? Is it a Jeb Bush? Is it someone, Ileana Ross-Layton, or someone like that? Or is it a Marco Rubio, the current senator from Florida, that is able to articulate a compassionate but yet conservative message, but does it in a way that's not offensive?
I think that's right. I don't think this is ultimately about faces and messengers, although the people that you cite all are terrific ambassadors on this issue, and frankly, all have played an important contribution to the debate. So to some degree, tokenism matters, but my view is that policy and message is more important as it relates to actually reaching out and being able to show people on a bottom line how a growing economy actually will improve their bottom line, how bringing manufacturing business back to this country will actually improve improve the the position of the Latino voter, and how a shared sense of values will lead to a stronger and more prosperous American society. Because you're right, the country is changing very much, but the central premise of opportunity that the founders laid out 250 years ago should be available to the different demographics and welcomed in the context of a growing population.
Kristian, I wonder what is more important, and you can make the argument that both are important. Is it the message in terms of what you're saying to this community, or is it the messenger, or a combination of both?
I really do think it is the message. And right now...
and what is that message, or what should that message be?
Well, I think Ronald Reagan was right on in this many, many years ago when he said, we have to return to being the shining city on the hill, and that, bring us your tired and your poor, and people who want to work and want to contribute to the society. And I think that is the thing that I find most dispiriting about the current...
But don't you see, let me interject here, but don't you see part of the problem, at least from a messaging standpoint, is that folks that were born in this country that are naturalized citizens, they don't necessarily like it when someone jumps in front of the line, that gets special treatment.
That's the law.
That gets special treatment.
And
so by default, that's simply not fair.
But I see what you're saying, but the current construct, Mitt Romney currently wants to do the self-deportation thing, which is almost like saying the current system works and we should continue to do that. We need to double down on what we've been doing. We've been doing that for 20 years, and the reality of the matter is the legal system for processing, the world's best and brightest and smartest doesn't work. We are deporting Fortune 500 CEOs who come to this country from all over the world, start businesses, contribute to their societies, and we are throwing them out. I understand the fairness issue, but we need to really...
Kristian's dead right on this, and this is an area where I think Republicans and Democrats will agree. H-1B visas, keeping the people here who have got big brains who are coming to study here. I mean, there's really no reason, essentially, to be educating Chinese scientists and sending them back to China simply because there's no pathway to stay in America. This is an easy and simple fix that I think Republicans and Democrats could agree on, that we really should try and keep, those who are going through this process and taking advantage of our universities, and try and keep them here. Technology is another basic, simple solution. There are a lot of ways to use, we live in a changing digital environment. Investments in technology to verify quickly, easily, and accurately who's here legally and who's not are, I think, common sense approaches that can be agreed upon. But we need to be reaching out and keeping and encouraging immigration that's legal and especially aimed at those who are really taking advantage of our best assets.
But I want to go back to this fairness question, because this has been, the legal system into this country has been broken for so long, since, quite frankly, 1986, when Reagan passed the last comprehensive immigration. There was a bill between then, but the framework that we've been looking at this has been broken for so long that you have a population of people who have been, maybe somebody in their family came. Governor Martinez is a perfect example of this. Her grandfather was actually an undocumented immigrant. She came into this country with a father who was not a citizen and worked hard and went on to become the governor of a state in our country. There are a lot of kids out there, there are a lot of families out there who have only known this country, who are patriotic, who love this country, and quite frankly, their avenues for naturalizing, for a legal process to remain and to continue to contribute to where they come from, and the only country that they know and love, does not exist. And that is something that I think if the Republican Party were more keyed into, it would pay dividends for them politically and from a policy standpoint, and, by the way, make the country better in the process.
All right, my last question for you both. Here's a crystal ball in front of us here right now. I love these type questions. 10 years ago, there were a lot of folks out there that said, you know what, our next minority president, our first minority president, will be someone of a Latino background. Obviously, our first minority president is Barack Obama, elected in 2008. When do you think a Latino individual, Latino American, will become president of the United States? Would it be in our lifetime? Do you think it'll be the next 10, 15, 20 years? Phil?
Crystal ball?
Crystal ball.
Crystal ball, I would say by 2024, we have either a president or vice president that's of Hispanic or Latino descent.
Kristian?
I'm going to say...
Are we looking at the future president right here?
I'm looking... No. Absolutely not. But I would say, absolutely within my lifetime, president, vice president. I would even say, between 2024.
Wow.
That makes sense as well.
Actually, I was bracing perhaps maybe a little bit sooner than that. Kristian, Phil, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
And of course, thank you for joining us for this edition of Comcast Newsmakers on the Vote. I'm Robert Trainum. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.